Hi, everyone. We are Transformation for America and Americans for the Arts. If you can all hear me, please feel free to give me a heads up, but we'll start with an introduction on T4 America. We are an alliance of elected business and civic leaders from the community across the country, united to ensure that states and the federal government invest in smart, locally driven transportation solutions, because these are the investments that hold the key to our future economic prosperity.
So hi everybody, this is Ben Stone, Director of Arts and Culture for Smart Growth America and Transportation for America. Thank you for joining us today. I'm joined by Patricia Walsh from Americans for the Arts. We are, as you just heard, going to be going over this new state-of-the-art transportation training opportunity, collaboration between Transportation for America and Americans for the Arts. Today we'll introduce ourselves and our organizations, talk to you a little bit about what this training opportunity looks like, the eligibility requirements, what we're looking for from applicants, what we'll actually be doing in the 3 selected communities, talking a little bit about the kinds of projects we've been tracking over the last few years that have involved with creative placemaking and transportation. And then we will do our best to focus the largest part of this webinar on your questions. Since we know a lot of this information is available online, we really want to make sure we have a chance to answer any questions you might have. So with that, I'll hand it over to Patricia to give her a quick chance to introduce herself and talk a little bit about Americans for the Arts.
Great, thank you, Ben. Well, hello, everyone. For those who don't know, I'm Patricia Walsh, the Public Art Programs Manager at Americans for the Arts. Americans for the Arts overall believes that the arts are integral to creating a healthy, vibrant, and equitable community. And as part of our process and part of our mission, we look out to find engagement opportunities with other national partners who work in non-art sectors. And we were really excited to see that Transportation for America, or Smart Growth America, we're excited to be partners on this NEA grant as we went into to figure out how we can support the projects that we know are happening out there around the country between the intersection of art, creative placemaking, and transportation, and where does that all work, and how can we support that work as it continues to move forward. So we're really excited to be here. I know Americans for the Arts is excited to be here. I'm excited to be here. I look forward to your questions. I think it's now over to Ben to finish doing the rest of this short part of the presentation before we jump into Q&A with you guys, and look forward to talking with all of you.
Great, thank you, Patricia. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our goals for this project, and before I do that, maybe I'll take a quick step back and talk about some of the programs that Transportation for America has been running over the last few years. So we have run, as many of you likely know, a program called the Cultural Corridors Consortium with funding from the Kresge Foundation. We've worked in now 6 communities across the country, providing some technical assistance, but some funding as well to support creative placemaking projects that solve transportation challenges in places from Nashville, Tennessee, to Dothan, Alabama, to Los Angeles, California, and San Diego, California, and Portland, Oregon, and Indianapolis as well. Building on that, we put together the Scenic Route, which is an online resource, creativeplacemaking.t4america.org, which has a brief how-to guide to do creative placemaking projects in the transportation sector, and built on that with Our Place America to produce a field scan on transportation and creative placemaking. So we've been tracking a number of projects around the country, reviewing hundreds of different organizations and projects that have attempted to solve transportation challenges using arts and cultural practice, and have really found that through talking to so many people that a training opportunity seemed like a likely next step for us. So our goals with this new program are to support artistic solutions to transportation challenges, to help local arts agencies and transit agencies or departments of transportation figure out how to work together more effectively. One of the real challenges we heard doing our field scan and talking to people working in this way around the country is that these 2 worlds, the arts world, the transportation world, are made up of very different people with an arts background, arts administration background, versus in many cases, people with a planning or engineering background have different senses of timelines, different language that they use to describe projects, and often are working with different skill sets and with different goals in mind. Although there is quite a bit of overlap and quite a bit of potential there to be more overlap with the proper training to bring people together. We're interested in bringing people together to discuss the projects they're working on, to discuss these different working styles, and to actually start to collaborate on real projects, which is part of the goal of this project and part of the requirements for submitting a proposal. And then we, of course, both Transportation for America and Americans for the Arts, being national organizations, are always interested in projects that can be scaled nationally and can have relevant lessons to share with other people beyond just the 3 communities we'll be working in. So the basics, and again, these are all on our website, on both Smart Growth America and Transportation for America's websites. But just a quick background of the basics. So it's a new training for both transportation agencies and local arts agencies to collaborate on projects. This program, the state-of-the-art training opportunity, has been underwritten by the National Endowment for the Arts and Art Place America. Thank you to both of those great organizations. We will be providing the training, running the workshops, we being Transportation for America and Americans for the Arts. We will be bringing in different people from the transportation world and the arts world, depending on the city selected. We don't have the exact list of partners we'll be bringing on board, since we're waiting to see exactly what the projects are. If it's a Complete Streets type project, we will likely involve people from our Complete Streets team, and so on and so forth. As I just mentioned, we're selecting 3 jurisdictions out of the applications that we receive. And the curriculum, well, we have a good sense of what we'd like to include. It will be tailored to each community so that we are not coming with a cookie cutter approach and attempt to train each community on things that they don't need to be trained on. So that'll be decided on a case-by-case basis, and we will work with the selected communities to figure out exactly what needs to be covered. The format of this workshop is that it'll be a 2-day workshop. Before we do the actual workshop, we will conduct an initial site visit, and that's how we'll really figure out what the curriculum needs to look like and the partners to involve in the actual workshop. We will come to your town, we will explore your town, look at your specific project area, or talk about your policy that you're going to be working on, figure out who on the ground in your community needs to be involved, and come back, flesh out the full curriculum, and then revisit for the actual 2-day workshop. The 2-day workshop will begin with both sides, you can call them sides, I suppose, separated in one room, the transportation crew, in the other room, the arts crew, learning about each other and about some of the basics of the creative placemaking world as well as the transportation world. And then in the afternoon, we will do a site visit to the specific project area when that is relevant, since I think a lot of these will involve specific place-based work. And the second day will be largely focused on hands-on work, getting people collaborating with one another, so we can really try to tease out some of the challenges and see where you all are having trouble working together, where things don't necessarily fit right, and we'll be helping and supporting that in real time as you start to work together. The exact timing, we don't have a specific week or month even in mind. With applications coming due in a couple weeks, we'll be selecting by the end of March our 3 communities, and then working with each of those communities to determine when the initial site visit and then workshops will happen. But likely, those will happen over the summer and into the fall of this year. Eligibility, there's much more information than what I'll mention now available on our website, but we're interested in cities and towns that want to explore innovative ways to drive transportation improvements, as well as collaboration between artists and planners and engineers and all the folks I mentioned before. Teams have to mention representatives from the local arts agency or equivalent. We understand not all jurisdictions have a local arts agency or even call them a local arts agency, but something that fills that role, and we can certainly talk about that a little bit more in the Q&A section, as well as representatives from a local Department of Transportation or a transit agency or some other department, maybe a Department of Public Works, as the case may be, depending on the jurisdiction. And then finally, a letter of support from the mayor's office, or again, the equivalent if there is no mayor's office, of course. We encourage involvement from other elected officials, from other departments, city departments, regional agencies as well, where relevant, and then when appropriate for advocacy organizations or other nonprofits that are involved in this kind of work to be part of the workshops too, since we understand so much great work does not just involve city agencies or regional or state agencies, but often involves private nonprofits assisting as well. Go ahead. And so there's another requirement that applicants need to select the solution they are looking to solve from the list of challenges and solutions that the challenge they're looking to solve with various solutions that we can help with from our field scan. This is the cover of the creative placemaking field scan we put together with ArtPlace you see on the screen now. And the seven challenges and 7 solutions are all on the screen there, everything from generating creative solutions for entrenched transportation problems to making streets safer for all users, healing old wounds and divisions, alleviating the disruptive effects of construction. So we really want applicants to be familiar with our field scan and to have a sense of how the challenge they're looking to solve fits in with this work. And you can certainly select more than one of these, maybe even all 7 if you're looking to be very ambitious, but want to make sure you're familiar with the field scan. You can find that on our website, on Transportation for America's website. And we hope that you will describe the work you're looking to do based on this. And really quickly, a couple of projects that kind of fit into this world. This is a project in Baltimore, Maryland, done by Graham Creel Allen, Creative Crosswalks, a collaboration between City Department of Transportation and Baltimore Office of Promotion of the Arts, the local arts agency there, to hire artists to paint creative crosswalks. Another project in Baltimore, another collaboration between different agencies, a artist-designed bus shelter that really brought together 2 communities, English-speaking and Spanish-speaking communities in Southeast Baltimore, around a creative placemaking project and a work of public art that is as well a piece of transportation infrastructure. A project in Nashville called Gateway to Heritage on Jefferson Street under a highway overpass there that is a commemoration of the community that was in this location before the highway was built, as well as a public space that actually helps connect different parts of Nashville back together underneath this highway. And a couple more, want to make sure we also focus on some non-public art projects. This is a more process-based project that we were supporting or continuing to support in Nashville called Envision Nolensville Pike, where artists put together teams of people that interviewed one another about the future of this corridor, Nolensville Pike, in South Nashville, where younger immigrant residents of the community interviewed older, majority white residents of the community about their memories of childhood and what they remembered from their different communities in their youth, and talked about things like walking to school, walking to the corner store as a way of bringing people with very drastic cultural differences together around the future of their shared current community.
And just to emphasize, I think this is, as Ben mentioned, we're really looking very broadly at what the terms arts and culture and how they can be integrated into these projects. It doesn't necessarily have to be a sculpture or a mural. It can be very broadly defined on how that's going to operate. It's really going to be best, like everything else we're doing around this project, really best in what's going to fit for your community. It's going to depend on how that's going to operate, really, moving forward, as to what your challenge is, and how that solution is going to look. So what that is, specifically it is that you're trying to incorporate and where the arts and culture fit within that is going to be entirely directed by the community that you're applying from. So.
Great, thank you, good point. One more quick example, it's one that I think a lot of people who are listening in probably are familiar with. This is the Irrigate project from St. Paul, Minnesota, where Springboard for the Arts partnered over 100 artists with over 100 local businesses during the construction of the Green Line light rail to try to make sure that the construction was not overly disruptive for those small independently owned businesses, and actually saw an increase in sales and retail sales for some of those businesses during that period through that creative placemaking project. So again, to Patricia's point, this is definitely a case-by-case kind of project. We're not telling you all that you should be collaborating in one specific way or on artist-designed bus shelters, so that might be an option. It could also be a very process-oriented collaboration you're looking to do as well. And finally, before we go to questions and answers, while I have an audience, I always like to mention our upcoming conference in Nashville, Tennessee, April 3rd and 4th. This is a collaboration between the Arts and Culture team here at Smart Growth America and our National Complete Streets Coalition. I encourage you all to check out our website, completestreetsconference.org, to learn more about this conference and register. We'll have an announcement of some keynote speakers very soon, but dozens and dozens of other speakers are up on our website and lots of great information there and lots of great projects to check out on some of our tours in Nashville coming up this spring.
I look forward to attending.
So do I. And with that, I think we will open it up to questions. And you have a chat box in the lower left corner of your screen, so feel free to send in your questions now, and we will do our best to answer them if we can.
So one question that we've gotten has to relate to the application and where folks can find that information. So everything that we've talked about and more is up on the Transportation for America website. And so you can find there a PDF of the application as well as some more in-depth details on the application process. So we will be circulating this link after the webinar so that you all will have access to that. Another question that we've gotten is when the application deadline is, and so for that will also be on our website, but it will be February 23rd, so about 2.5 weeks from now. One other question that we've gotten a lot is how involved transportation agencies need to be in this process. And so Ben did an overview of this, but I can also turn this over to Ben to go over and walk through a little bit more details in terms of what the expectations are for transportation agencies throughout this process of the workshops.
Yeah, it's a question we've received a couple times in the past and also just now. From our perspective, it's really crucial for City Department of Transportation or transit agency to be involved and be one of the lead applicants. So there's a understanding there's a willingness for those agencies and departments to take on this work and learn about how to do it from the inside rather than only having advocacy organizations apply and only being part of the training for workshops.
And I think it also making sure the transportation agency is involved also goes back to this level of collaboration that we're really trying to make sure is being engaged on the local level and that we're seeing as being successful across the country. So by having both the arts sector, the arts and culture sector of your community as well as your transportation sector being engaged equally on this is really going to make a more successful project as you guys move forward. So the more involved they are, if they're as involved as the arts and culture sector, it's really going to help support the growth of whatever project it is that you're trying to work on. And so it's important that they're a part of it as well as the arts and culture, both equally sitting at the table, both learning. As Ben was sort of outlining the workshop, we really want to see it also as an educational component to both the arts and culture side, understanding how transportation works, as well as transportation understanding about the role arts and culture can play within their work. And so being able to grow from that to be able to address whatever your challenges are and move forward. And so we're really looking at this as a collaborative component, so it's important that both sides sit at the table equally and approach this application process the same way.
Great.
One other question that we have received is if either Ben or Patricia could walk us through some of the benefits of this work, how they might appeal more broadly to planners, community members, and elected officials.
Sure. So from our perspective, the benefit of this work, certainly summarized in our field scan, is that there are many cities where there are, or many people around the country where there are artists who are working on trying to solve transportation challenges, perhaps by creating installations to slow traffic or painting crosswalks to help pedestrians cross streets more safely. And there are certainly engineers that are working, and many organizations that are working on figuring out designs that will help with those same challenges. And we think that both on the engineering side, there would be a benefit to those countermeasures, those interventions that are designed to make streets safer for more people. It would benefit from a creative approach, and so things are done in a locally relevant and culturally relevant way and look different in different kinds of community. We feel that's rather essential, as well as we feel that artists would benefit from learning about the proven strategies for slowing traffic, for one example at least. And so that if people understand the other side and can collaborate better, we'll get more creative approaches, things that are more relevant to a local community, that have people feel more of a sense of ownership over the place that they live, as well as actually using the proven strategies so that the artistic installation really does slow the traffic that it's trying to slow, for example. Anything?
Yeah, and there's other statistics that we can also pass around as well. A few years ago, Americans for the Arts did a public opinion poll across the country where we learned that about over 70% of people engage the arts in non-arts venues. So we do see these types of collaborations being a way to really kind of engage people in the way that they're not only viewing their environment, but being, as Ben was saying, take ownership of it, creating a sense of cultural identity. There's also an equitability lens to this, and being able to make sure people feel like they're part of their community by seeing it reflected in the way a transportation section is designed, or project is designed, I should say, is another way. We also know that the arts is another way that people feel like by seeing the arts reflected within their communities, feels as though you're embracing different cultures and being supportive of other backgrounds within that area. So I think it becomes part of the way of creating a dialogue within within that community, and the arts and culture can really help bridge that gap between trying to plan something that's going to impact an entire community and making it more welcome to the people that actually live there or engage with it or commute there, or whatever that audience is.
Great. Thank you both so much. One other great question we have received is that these projects for one of our attendees is asking in terms of urban versus suburban and rural environments, and just curious in terms of whether these projects are appropriate for areas that are not urban, which is a great question that I think Ben can address.
Sure, yeah, that's a great question. I'm sorry if some of the examples, I guess most examples were from urban areas. We understand that light rails and some heavier infrastructure are definitely more likely to be found in more urban areas or possibly suburban areas. We are very interested as an organization in working in rural areas as well, and have done quite a bit of our work recently in rural communities around the country. And so there's no requirement that one needs to be representing an urban community in order to be applicable. Rural communities are equally as relevant, and we're certainly interested in them. I mentioned Dothan, Alabama, which is an urban area in a fairly rural setting in southeastern Alabama, where we've been doing a lot of complete streets related work over the last several months. So yeah, again, apologies if the examples were too urban that I just showed, but definitely interested in hearing from rural and suburban communities as well.
And Americans for the Arts thinks the same way. We realize that our country is very big and very vast in the way it operates, and so looking at things at rural, mid-sized city, and urban or metropolitan areas is how we view things as well. So we're really excited to see different applications coming in from across the country, from the different areas that we all service, both T4A and Americans for the Arts. So, yeah.
Great. One other question that we've gotten a fair amount that has also been brought up in this chat box is if a county is eligible to apply or if it must be a municipality.
Yeah, it's a good question, something we've discussed internally. We're open to counties applying, I'd say, with a couple caveats, I suppose. There has to be an actual project in mind or collaboration that will have a real place-based impact on communities. But if the specific governing body is a county government that is interested in doing this work and would like to collaborate with a local arts agency, if you make the argument that that's the correct collaboration and that will result in quality collaboration in the future, we'd be excited to hear from you.
Great. Another question along these lines is if the municipality has to, in terms of the preparation for eligibility, do they have to have a specific program or application in mind to be eligible?
So we generally tend to believe that, as an organization, I should say, Transportation for America and Smart Growth America, that when there is a training that we are conducting, either in the transportation world, arts and culture world, or any of our other programs, that having a specific goal or project in mind helps people learn. So rather than learning in an abstract way how to work together, that learning initially from us in a somewhat abstract way, but then diving into a specific project, whether it's a road redesign or a station build or any sort of transportation project, will help you all put some of the things we're talking to you about into practice right away. So some sort of project doesn't, the phase of the project is not really crucial. It could be an early planning phase, it could be design phase, it could be even the early advocacy phase. You're looking to build support for some project. So that is not crucial. The phasing is not crucial, but some sort of specific project that we'll be able to focus on with you is very important.
Great. Another question that we've received is if we could describe a bit about what we're looking for in terms of potential candidate cities. So I know we've touched on this in a few different ways, but if Ben or Patricia would like to walk us through if there's any other additional criteria or things that we'd be looking for to highlight in the city or the city application.
I guess a couple ways I could read that question. One is that we have no preference for geography. We'd be just interested in hearing from people in Maine, as Florida, California, et cetera, et cetera. So there's no geographic preference to any one area versus another. Having said that, in terms of a team, we're really just interested in having an equal level of excitement from both the arts side and the transportation side. So if something reads as if a local arts agency is really excited about this and they're dragging a DOT kicking and screaming to the table for this workshop, or vice versa, then that will be less exciting to us than if both agencies are interested and invested in learning about this work. Do you have anything to add?
No, I think that pretty much, again, it goes back to this idea of collaboration, really making sure everyone's coming together at the table to really solve whatever your transportation challenge is, and being able to embrace both sides and wanting to learn together to move forward together, and utilizing this opportunity as an opportunity to really kind of build on that and move whatever your transportation issue is forward.
Great. Thank you both. One other question that we have received is, what is the nature of the training? So one participant of the webinar has asked that they're looking for capacity building around community engagement to execute a series of tactical urbanism demonstrations. Would your technical assistance address that, or are you looking to provide transportation and or creative placemaking experts to help educate our coalition members on creative placemaking? So question of execution versus the technical assistance piece.
Yes to both of those, I think. I think they're not mutually exclusive. So we, in this hypothetical, or I guess real situation with somebody asking about community engagement strategies, that's certainly a focus we would be excited to work on. I think it's something we'll probably hear from a number of people. It doesn't have to be involved in the application, but that could certainly be a focus area, and we would, if that was the case and we selected a community where it was a very specific community engagement challenge, then we would work with that transportation agency and that local arts agency or equivalents with the appropriate people and the appropriate experts on community engagement and share a bunch of different projects that we're familiar with in which artists were involved in helping to do equitable community engagement and creative community engagement and train that particular jurisdiction on doing that work.
Great, thank you. One other question that is a good one is if the project is already underway, in terms of integrating a complete streets project, can the city's application have this project integrate with a process that's already in place?
Short answer is yes. I suppose the longer answer would be as long as it's not too late for our assistance to be of value. If a project is already underway and the process is set and there's really no way of changing anything, then I don't think the workshop would be as useful to that particular jurisdiction. But if a project's already underway and there's an opportunity to do more, do better, do different, then it sounds like that would be a great opportunity and great timing.
Great. Another question in terms of eligibility that's come up both in this chat box and also over email is if a city can receive these trainings if they've already received T4A funding previously. So this question's asking in terms of St. Paul's received these trainings and other similar projects that maybe T4A has done in the past.
Yeah, it's a great question, something I've heard from a few folks. So the only real restriction in that sense that we have put out there is that the communities we've been working in through our Cultural Corridor Consortium program do not have, I suppose, a less good chance of being selected than communities we have not worked with as the Arts and Culture team. That being said, we understand that Smart Growth America and Transportation for America have worked in communities all over the country on everything from transit-oriented development to small-scale manufacturing and many other kinds of workshops. There's no disadvantage if you have received one of those workshops through a different program area at Smart Growth America or Transportation for America. So you're still eligible and you have no strikes against you unless you've worked directly with us through this Cultural Corridor Consortium program.
Great. I think that is most of the questions that we have received. One question that did come up is whether there's an additional webinar happening. This is our webinar. The application of the PDF online had mentioned a tentative webinar, but that is happening right now. So. One question that just came in that is a good one also is matching funds are required, and what's the overall value of the technical assistance workshop?
So we do not require matching funds. We understand a lot of creative placemaking grants out there do, some do not. In this case, it's not required. Having said that, since we are looking to run workshops in places where there's an actual project, there would likely be some sort of funding, imagine, attached to that project, but we don't require any specific one-to-one match or anything like that. In terms of the total value, we can get back to you all about that. Part of it's a little bit up in the air. It'll depend on who we involve and the teams we put together, the travel, all those sorts of things, but we can give you a ballpark figure. I just don't, unfortunately, have it in front of me at this exact moment in terms of a dollar value.
Great. One other question that has come up is in regards to the actual application process, the character count, and some of the more logistics around answering these questions. We are encouraging everyone to download the PDF application and have everyone's answers prepared and ready to go before jumping into the online application so that you'll have your questions ready, but the character limit will be described per each question, as well as on the PDF and then also online. And this webinar will also be posted to the website. So that is another question that we will have the webinar up on the website and also follow up with an email summarizing some of these questions, as well as links to all the relevant sites for everyone to have.
The time.
So if there aren't any additional questions, we will plan to wrap up. There's one more question here. Is the application program considered a grant, which is another good question, which I'll hand over to Ben.
Technically, no. It's a good question. We're not offering any direct grants, direct funding. This is an underwritten workshop that we are offering, so there's no direct grant or no direct funds offered to the communities. Rather, it'll be the value of our time, travel, and the workshop that we're offering, rather than direct funding.
Great. Thank you.
We're just going through additional questions. It looks like a couple of the new questions that have come in we just answered, so we're going to wrap up now unless there are any other additional questions that we see appear on the screen in the next few seconds. And if you were late to join the webinar and you didn't have your question answered, there's a pretty good chance we answered it in the last few minutes. We encourage you, once we post this webinar soon, to go back and listen, or to shoot us an email at the email address you see on your screen right now, and we'd be happy to answer them as they come up in the future. So with that, thank you, everybody. We look forward to seeing your applications, and good luck putting them together. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.